Hey everyone, Matt from Close and Books here. It's been a while. I know. I'm sorry. I had a lot of traveling to do for work. And as a result, things got real busy. I went home. I had to fly out to Australia for work, which was awesome. By the way, Australia is very lovely. I went to Brisbane, which I know you're supposed to say Brisbane, not Brisbane. I went to Brisbane for a work conference, saw some really amazing science, met some really cool people. On the last day, I actually took the train out to go to the Australia Zoo. That was unbelievable. It was so amazing. Saw some really cool animals, saw some cool wildlife. Got to explore Brisbane a bit, see the city a bit, it's a really beautiful city. Really recommend. Was only there for 5 days. I am still really feeling the effects of jet lag. What am I talking about right now? Whatever. The point is, I was busy. I'm here. Hi guys. And I felt a surge of inspiration to make a video, which kind of is few and far between these days. I've been reading really voraciously. Like, I've been reading faster than I can, like, the appetite for reading another book is like stronger than my will to sit down and make a video about the books I've read. So when I am finding the inspiration and the time to make a video, I make sure to capitalize on it, which is what's going on today. It is the mid-year freakout tag. I've never done this tag before, even though this is my second year on BookTube. I have not done this tag. It's like my favorite tag. Funnily enough, I love it this time of year. I see all my favorite creators, all my favorite booktubers sit down and talk about their favorite books or the best book they've read throughout the year. And I thought, you know what, I'd jump on board. I've read some really great books this year. At actually this point this year, I have read more books so far this year, or about the same amount of books so far this year, than I have like almost all of last year combined. I think that's a combination of not reading Infinite Jest and not finishing my dissertation. So a little bit more time to bounce around with my reading lately. But I wanted to make this video, say hi to you guys, say what's up. It's been a while, I know. Yeah, so let's get started. The first question is, what is the best book so far of 2025? You guys know the answer is Moby Dick, but I'm not gonna talk about Moby Dick again, because I feel like every video so far of this year I've talked about it. So instead, I'm gonna talk about the other book that's in contention for best book of the year, and that is Agua Viva by Clarice Lispector. This book just floored me, just absolutely floored me. You know, it's so funny because it's so short and Moby Dick is such a chunker, but this like really hit me almost as hard. Yeah, I mean, this book is just so internal and so tumultuous and tortured, and it is just in this woman's mind, who is just like, I feel like her brain is like a pinball machine where her thoughts are just bouncing all over the place. But my favorite thing about this book is that even though it feels so erratic and tortured and like I said, tumultuous, like all of the thoughts that go like from paragraph to paragraph to paragraph, it kind of seems like these thoughts are unrelated to each other. If you're focusing hard enough and you are really, really in tune with the writing, you can find the kind of thread that combines all these paragraphs together into like one coherent thesis. This kind of balance between how difficult and how torturous it is to have humanity, to be a human being, but at the same time just how unbelievably blessed and gorgeous and unbelievable it is to be a human being. And that always really calls to me in this writing. Just this like almost like a quantum state of being a human, of being tortured, but also just being unbelievably shocked with how beautiful life is, you know? And it just depends on when you're observing it, at what point of mind you're observing it. So yeah, Agua Viva, I mean, just unbelievable, just so good. And the only book I've like already almost reread throughout the year. I mean, it's really short, but I really read this book initially incredibly deeply. Like I did, like if you look at the pages, it's just like I didn't really let much go. But a lot of this book is trying to experience life without any interpretation, like living like a flower or an animal would, you know, just experiencing life instant by instant. And so the second rereading, or I guess the rereading, has been inspired by just taking it as it goes and not trying to, I guess, lacerate the pages with analysis, you know? So just trying to like experience it as it comes. So that's what I'm gonna say now is in contention for the best book of 2025. The next question is best sequel of 2025, which is a little difficult because I mostly read standalone works. I don't read a lot of series. However, luckily I'm reading something that can be, I guess it could be argued as a sequel, and that is M Train by Patti Smith. So I read Just Kids early in the year and I loved it. It was like, it ended up, like I said, it ended up being like a comfort read for me. I kind of really fell in love with Patti Smith's quirky, a little pretentious, but just really poetic style of writing. And this book came out, I think like 5 or 6 years after Just Kids. Let's see. Yeah, so 2015. So 5 years after Just Kids. And it's not like a direct sequel where Just Kids is kind of written about her time in the 60s and the 70s, her time with her good friend Robert Mapplethorpe, and kind of growing up in New York City. This is more of a reflection for her. It's written in the, I guess, so it's written like during actually like Hurricane Sandy, which I think was 2012. That was my freshman year of college, so I think it was 2012. And what I really enjoy about this book is that while Just Kids seems very hectic and very like it feels so youthful, you know, this is kind of written very muted and very, very thoughtful, very dreamlike, you know. She transitions very seamlessly through memories, present day, reflections in real life. And you know, it's cool to read this right after reading Just Kids, where Just Kids it feels like it's so full of youth, but this book is kind of like that transition from this youthful exuberance to this quiet, solemn thoughtfulness. And you can see she's very much the same person, but it's just expressed in a different way. And I'm not quite done with this. I have like 60 or so pages left in it. I'm like almost done. I probably should have just finished it before recording this, but like I said, I had this surge of inspiration. But I am liking this book maybe a little bit more than Just Kids, which I soon found out after I expressed that opinion is kind of a cursed, sacrilegious opinion, but hey, it's my opinion. And another thing I like about this book is she talks so much about drinking coffee. And I am a big coffee drinker. You know, I'm an Italian American. Like, I've been having espresso shots after dinner since I was like a kid. But like, oh my God, Patty, are you okay? Holy shit. Like, she said she drinks like 14 cups of coffee a day. I mean, like, someone's got to check in on Patty. Whatever. I hope you're doing all right, Patty, because that is a concerning amount of coffee. The next two questions are not super relevant to this channel. It is 2020 best release of 2025 and anticipated release for the rest of 2025. I don't really have anything, to be honest. I don't think I've read anything from 2025 this year. But you know, hey, if there's a book I should be looking forward to, let me know in the comments. I know that Pynchon is releasing a book this year, which sounds exciting, but you know, likely it'll probably be years before I get to it at the speed I'm reading Pynchon. So the next question is a little sad. It is, what is the biggest disappointment of 2025? And unfortunately, I had a couple of options to choose from. There are some books maybe I kind of bought into the hype a little bit too much and maybe built it up a little bit too much in my head, that when I read it, I felt a little let down. But there's one in particular that really sticks out to me. And the reason being is, well, actually, I'll tell you what it is and I'll tell you why it was disappointing. The book that unfortunately was the most disappointing to me so far this year is Trilogy by Jan Fosse. I think this was particularly disappointing to me because everything I've heard about this book, the writing style, the author, just seems so up my alley, you know, like thoughtful, experimental writing, you know, like that is just what I was just really, it's my wheelhouse. It was partly shocking because I was at a bookstore, they had Septology, and I read the first 20, 30 pages in one sitting, and I was just entranced. I couldn't get enough of it. I was like, if this book wasn't 700 pages, I'd be buying this book right now and reading it. I just don't have time for a 700-page book right now. I was just so entranced. I just couldn't get enough of it that I said, okay, I won't get Septology now, but I'll go get Trilogy because I know it's much shorter. And not that this book was bad. I did enjoy this book and I thought it was good. Like, I want to get that straight before you write a comment. I thought this book was a good book. I liked this book. It just, I expected more. And what I think my main issue with this book is that it didn't feel convincing. The writing style didn't feel convincing. It didn't feel like it added much to the story, and it didn't feel like it was necessary to tell the story. Lots of repetition, lots of like ethereal, like heady, not even heady, but like almost like anxious, tumbling over itself narrative. It just didn't really feel like it worked with this book. And I think the reason is with the reason why it works so well with Septology and not this book is that Septology is in first person. And I feel like when you're getting this really like muted, tumbling style of narrative from a first person perspective, it feels much more like stream of conscious, much more like what in real internal dialogue or internal monologue would be, right? With this book, it just kind of felt like I'm hearing it from another guy who's not great at getting his thoughts out. Like someone is telling me a story and he's just not doing a great job, I did think that there were moments of this book where the writing style made it very beautiful. I really enjoyed the food for thought on this book about like class and justice and like the questions of justice when you are put in a position where you're put into a corner and you don't really have many other options, and like also how you choose to love someone even if you know that person has done some horrible things just when they're just trying to take care of you, things like that. I thought was great. I did enjoy this book quite a bit. I just thought that the writing style maybe took away from it a little bit, or just didn't convince me. And I found that I wanted this book to demand more of me as a reader. I wanted to have to pick apart more than I did. Like the experimentalism just felt like it didn't add, like, yeah, I guess it wasn't demanding enough as a book. Which I know sounds silly, but I just found myself kind of very easily getting through it and not being very challenged by it, which is what I guess was what I was expecting. So still a great book, Trilogy by Jan Fosse, but it wasn't like the 5-star read I was expecting. Sorry, I hope I didn't. I still think you should read it. I still think you should give it a chance, and I hope I didn't, make anyone feel sad about that. Biggest surprise of the year, I actually just finished yesterday, or maybe 2 days ago. And on my way back from Australia, I actually had finished reading all the books I brought with me. 16-hour flight from Brisbane to San Francisco, an 8-hour layover, and then a 6-hour flight back to Nashville. So it was like, it was a lot of time for reading. So I read all the books I had brought with me to Brisbane. So I was in this bookstore in the San Francisco airport, and they had a selection of archipelago books, which for like an airport bookstore is pretty fucking cool, right? And there was a book there that was recommended. How they have like the letters that say like, oh, recommended by the staff. This book was recommended by the staff, and I read the synopsis. I was like, that sounds pretty cool. And that book was Eastbound by Melis de Kerangal. This book was such a shock. It was so surprising. This book is brilliant. This book is so good. This book is about two people who are on the same train. It is a trans-Siberian train, so from Russia through Siberia, and they are two very different ends. They are on the two different ends of the spectrum of like socioeconomic class. There is this woman, Elena, who is on the first The first class cart has this huge, beautiful cart to herself. And then there is Alyosha, who got drafted to the Russian army. And he is, he's in this train packed with filth, packed with other soldiers who are smoking, gross, disgusting, So they're on different ends of the class spectrum. However, they are both kind of united in the fact that they are going through these very personal crises, where Alyosha, I should really look up how to say that.
Pronouncenames.com.
Alyosha. So they're both going through different crises, where Alyosha drafted to the Russian army, and he feels just such great strife about this. He feels no tie to the Russian army. He feels no patriotism. He knows the horrors that await him for something he is not passionate about at all, and he's just so desperate. He's this loner, he doesn't have any friends, he has a hard time talking to people, and even in this first scene of him on the cart, seeing all these other Russian soldiers or all these other Russian soldiers or drafted kids basically talking, hanging out, starting to form bonds, and he just physically can't do it. Like, he just feels like there's such a wall between him and them. Where Elena is kind of jumped into this relationship with this Siberian man just for this idea. She got really enthralled with this idea of being in a relationship with like this darker, cooler, more mysterious Siberian person, moved to Russia and realized she was in there, she got in way more than she bargained for, right? You find this out pretty early in the book, and this is probably the most I'll get to a spoiler, but Alyosha decides to try to desert. Like, he tries to run away, tries to get off the train, and he meets Elena, and she decides to try to help, even though they don't speak the same language. Elena is French, Alyosha is Russian, and it's the story of that happening, basically. I just love this book so much. It just blew me away. It's so short. It's like 110 pages, and it's a little archipelago, a little square book, so you can blow through it in one sitting. It took me two, because slow reader, but it's beautifully written. The translation by Jessica Moore is just unbelievable. It's gorgeous, and you just don't want to put it down. It's just so good. And I just love this idea of two people from completely different walks of life who come together and unite through grief, who unite through common strife. Like, they understand each other on a different level, even though they can't speak to each other, because they are both going through a crisis. And it was just beautiful, and I loved it, and I really recommend this book. I really think it's amazing. Okay, so that is Eastbound by Melis de Kerangal. Okay, so the next question is favorite new author, and this is going to be kind of a fun answer, because it is not a novel that led me to this, but it's actually poetry, and that is Sylvia Plath. So I'm reading Ariel right now, and I've read a bunch of her poems online too, from like her earlier works, like the Colossus and whatnot. And man, it just, like, I have always had trouble connecting with poetry. I always find that I find that when I get to a poem, I have a hard time turning my really analytical side of my brain off. Like, I'm like trying to figure it out, like it is something that needs to be cracked or solved, like a puzzle or something. And there's a really great video I'll link in the description about how to approach poetry, and it's not to approach it like a puzzle, and you should approach it like the author is trying to just capture a feeling. But this is like the first poetry collection that is fully engrossing, and like I am able to just jump in and feel what Sylvia Plath is like trying to make you feel. And yeah, I mean, it's not happy it's not happy poetry, but it really does make me feel something. It really makes me experience what she's trying to convey, and it's just the first time poetry has hit me like this. And to be honest, this book has kind of unlocked poetry for me as a whole. I've been able to look at different poets and poems, and I've been able to kind of recreate that mindset I had reading this book with new poetry, and it's been like, it's been a really revolutionary book for me. So Ariel by Sylvia Plath, it's just really amazing. It's really beautiful. I posted something on my Instagram the other day. I have an Instagram now. I don't really use it often, and I feel bad because people have like messaged me and commented on the photos I posted, but I haven't checked it in a while, so I'm like, do I message back? I saw your messages, I saw your comments. Thank you for the comments and stuff. They're very nice. But one poem I really, really loved is Tulips, where it is, it's her laying down in bed and just feels like she is crushed. At least this is how I interpreted it. She's like really crushed with the weight of existence. Like she's just so tired of existing because being a person is so tiring. And she just wants to lay down and feel nothing. And somebody out of a good gesture brought her these really bright red tulips. And the tulips are too intense for her. They make her feel too much, and where she just kind of wants to be this empty vessel of nothing. And the tulips are vibrant, they're bright, they remind her of life, they remind her of her friends and her family outside, and she just doesn't want to deal with it. She just wants to be empty. It really is really incredible shit. So yeah, that's Sylvia Plath, Ariel. So new favorite author for me, for sure. Really unlocked poetry for me. So thanks, Sylvia. The next one is, the next question is my new favorite character. And hey, listen, I got all the way here without discussing Moby Dick, so you should be proud of me. You should be proud of me. That being said, my new favorite character in all of literature is Ishmael. Ishmael is the GOAT. I love his character so much. I love his neuroticism. I love his obsession. I love just how he is unable to take things as they seem, and he's always digging for a deeper meaning. And I just feel like his constantly moving gears in his brain, I was able to like relate to them. They felt comforting to me because it feels like, and I don't want anyone to get concerned, but it feels like my brain and the way my brain works was like really accurately captured in this book, where he just goes on these tangents. He finds something to obsess over, and then just ruthlessly obsesses over it, and then expands on it till it is a totally different place than where he started. I really related with that. I really felt that, and I just felt very represented by Ishmael. So I love Ishmael. I love this fucking book. God damn it. Yeah, I can't get started on this book again because I love it so much. And Ishmael, not just my favorite character of this year, but so far my favorite character in literature so far. Okay, I'm done. No more Moby Dick. Okay, book that made me cry this year. So I should have manly tear to a book this year, but not out of sadness, but out of like sheer like beauty and warmth. And that was actually To the Lighthouse by Virginia Woolf. I think what really hit me about this book, that hit me so emotionally, is that the characters' mindsets in this book, or you get really direct access to their brains in this book. And they are very, tortured characters, always questioning, doubting themselves, feeling totally isolated and lonely and anxious, and like this anxiety doesn't stop, though it's written in such a beautiful and gorgeous way. Like these characters are constantly like questioning themselves, particularly Mr. and Mrs. Ramsey. Mr. Ramsey in particular really is questioning himself and feels this need to be like reassured all the time. And Mrs. Ramsey is very sure of herself, but it feels like kind of like a false confidence almost, where she's very sure of her values, but herself as a person she's not so sure of. And so you get this really, like, you are always kind of like on edge when you're reading it. Like you are kind of taking on their mindset of like, oh my God, like everything is stressful, chaotic. But there is a moment at the end of the first part where Mr. and Mrs. Ramsey I'm getting emotional just thinking about it. Mr. and Mrs. Ramsey share this very quiet moment of understanding. Like this very quiet moment of unconditional love, where you are so sure based off what you've read that these characters are irredeemable, they're flawed, because you're getting it from their brain. They view themselves this way. But at the end, when they see each other and they have this very quiet moment of understanding and just like pure, complete transparency, total understanding of each other's mindset, total understanding that they are at full blast transmitting the feeling of love to each other. Oh my God, it was just so moving. It was so warm, and you could just see that even though these people are so imperfect and so, so flawed, like they fit each other like a lock and a key. Like it just was so gorgeous. It's so amazing. Oh man, it just was just so beautiful. It's just so heartwarming and comforting, and oh my God, I want to go. Oh man, it's just so good. Yeah, I don't know what to say. It's just amazing, and I really hope you guys get to experience that same feeling that I got to experience when I read this, because it moved me to tears, honestly. Okay, there you go. To the lighthouse, whatever. So the next question is a book that made me happy this year, and that is Lincoln in the Bardo by George Saunders. While it is a very tragic book, I find this book to be very hopeful and very optimistic. And in a time like this, especially in America, like hopefulness is something that is, it's like a rare commodity. And it's the 4th of July today, and I'm not feeling particularly patriotic, and it seems like every year I feel less and less and less hopeful for this country. It was nice to read about a book that reminds you of the power of unity. It reminds you of a president that we had that you can be proud of, and it just reminds you of just how powerful empathy can be. And I really appreciated it from this book in a time where now, in America, it just feels like we have anything but unity, anything but hopefulness. And it's funny because I went to there's those giant protests across the country a couple weeks back, and I ended up going to it, and I really felt that feeling of like it was like the first time I felt hope in a long time, where everyone was united in a message, united in a feeling, and it felt like I wasn't alone. It felt like there was some hope there, but it was short-lived, and I don't know, whatever. Lincoln in the Bardo, thanks George for the bit of hope you instilled in me. Okay, so the last question is the most beautiful book I bought this year, and I'm going to give that to Death and Equality by Lucinda Ebersole. So this book is, the cover's nice. I don't mind the cover, it's okay. But what really sold this book to me as the most beautiful is, I don't know, there's like a weight to this book. It is written about this woman, Cordelia. She is dying of cancer, and she moves to this town called Equality. And I feel like I have to talk more about this book at some point. I'm not going to be able to get all my thoughts about it right now. This book really, more than any book I've ever read, makes you feel how much is lost when a person passes. Like, how do I even explain it? How, like, if life is like a pool and a person is like a droplet of dye, like how far that dye spreads, the best way I can explain it, just how far you can thread a life throughout like a town or a community like Equality. Yeah, it's very beautiful. It's a very, very beautiful book, and I loved it a lot. I learned about it through the channel Impossible Adjective, which I'll link down. You should go check him out. But what really made it beautiful for me is when I ordered it, I didn't realize that when I got it, I had gotten a signed copy. That's her signature right there. And it's a book about a woman dying of cancer, and like that is actually how Lucinda Ebersol passed years later. And it just feels like this meditation, like on just how deep an influence can go, or how you know, just again, like how much is lost when a person passes. And it feels like there's like a weightiness to it, that she wrote this and then she passed the same way that Cordelia did. And then in combination with like her signature, it just almost feels like there is like a, I don't know, like a weightiness to this book that maybe made me consider it a little bit more than I normally would. I'm not really communicating how I feel about it very, very well. But you know, it's really hard to articulate, but it is a beautiful book. And you know, in combination with her signature being there, I don't know, it takes on its own life, I guess. The last question is my TBR for the rest of the year. I'm just gonna talk about 2 books, or maybe 3 books that I want to read. I'm just gonna briefly mention them, but I do want to read Mason and Dixon by Thomas Pynchon. The idea was to read Gravity's Rainbow by the end of the year, but I think I'm gonna pivot to Mason and Dixon. I think the reason being that I think I'm more likely to enjoy this book more than Gravity's Rainbow. And I feel like if I read Gravity's Rainbow, I will have felt like I conquered the mountain, and I might not feel the need to read any more Pynchon. Where if I read this book, I might get totally sold on Pynchon and want to binge the rest of his work. So that's why I'm picking Mason and Dixon. I also am going to read starting in 2 weeks from now. I'm going to read Zadie Smith on Beauty. I'm going to read this as a buddy read with one of my friends. Actually, the friend I showed you the text earlier who said liking M Train more than Just Kids is sacrilege. So whatever. But this is the book we're going to read next. Looking forward to that. And lastly, I'm not going to take it out because it's buried in here, but Light in August by Faulkner is going to be my Faulkner for the year. I was in between that and Absalom, but I think I'm going to stick with Light in August. Okay, so hey, it was great to see you guys. It's been a while. I hope you are able to enjoy your 4th. I hope you have some fulfilling reading, and hopefully I'll talk to you all sooner rather than later, because I know it's been a while. I apologize. So I'll talk to you guys later. Peace out.